Welcome, everyone, and welcome today to Vicky Rubin, three-time award-winning author of the inspiring memoir, Raising Jess, A Story of Hope, and a passionate advocate for families of children with disabilities. So welcome, Vicky. I am delighted to have you here. Before we get into this serious topic today, let's start with you sharing a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Well, thank you, Julie, and I'm so happy to be here. And hello, everybody. I'm originally from Long Island. There's a little bit of my Long Island, New York, and I currently live in Western New York. So we're near Canada, and I've been married for 43 years to the same guy.
Well done.
I have three adult children. My oldest is the one I wrote the book about. It's really about our family, but generally about her. And three grandchildren and two wonderful dogs.
Wow, so a very complete family.
A complete family. I started my career as a parent educator, and then I became the director of a program that worked with families of children with special needs and all the professionals that worked with this population. And we did technical assistance and explained there's so many regulations and things that families have to learn when their children need services. So we explained all the laws, regulations, and what it meant for families. And then I retired and I wrote a book.
Amazing story, and amazing how, I was almost going to say, how one can take an obstacle and turn it into such a source of, but it's not an obstacle, is it? You've taken something which could be a challenge or could be scary to other people, or where people could feel at a loss, and you've really made your life mission out of it. And your book has, got a lot of acclaim and has obviously resonated with a lot of people. So let's get straight into the topic. I mean, parenting, you called it perpetual parenting. And I was thinking, I was preparing this because I think that for all of us, parenting is perpetual. And I think something that lots of us are also not totally aware of at the beginning. I remember thinking, once I get my children through the learning how to walk and to talk and to write and to read, and basically I was thinking that by the age of 18, the real parenting would be done, and then we'd be all like sort of friends. And then you realize once you have three adult children that it is perpetual parenting, and the bonds, of course, are always there. So whether they let you parent them or not is a different issue, but the need to try and help them in their directions is still there. However, it does take an entirely different dimension when we're talking about children with special needs. And the fact that this is obviously a fabulous after 50, we're talking about 50 plus, we're not talking about the end of our lives, but we are talking already about, yes, this is, let's say, what do they call it? The autumn. It can be as golden and as glorious as we want, but it is the autumn. And I can imagine the worries of the parent who is aging. I mean, we all are, but already starting to think about an adult child then who has special needs. And how can you prepare? How can you make sure that that child will be looked after? And so that is basically what motivated you. Share a little bit of your story. Tell us a little bit about Jessie.
Okay, so when you first have a child with a disability, as you said, your life is just turned upside down. But Jessica, for us, and this is part of the reason that I wrote the book and shared the book, is she transformed me. I started with my priorities were, like any other 20-year-old priorities. Having Jessica changed my life, and in so many positive ways. And so my message to families, it is a story of hope. And Jessica requires, I'll tell you a little about her in a second, requires so much assistance. It's not what we planned, but that's okay. It's different than what we planned, but what we have learned and gained as a family is invaluable. So the people that we have met, the opportunities that we have to teach other people about differences, because there's differences, and about acceptance.
Yes.
And there are kids who knew Jessica when she was young, who have told their parents later on that she had such an impact in their life. She doesn't speak. Without saying a word, Jessica has made her mark on other people. And for me, I mean, my career, I didn't know this was going to be my career. My career was helping other families and other professionals.
Yeah.
So Jessica really, it is a story of hope for families to know it's not the end when you have a scary diagnosis. It's not the end. It's opportunity just to look at things differently.
So you were very young then, if I understand well, when you
When I had Jess, I was 24 and I had chicken pox, not knowing it. I was in the hospital and it was Easter Sunday. And so not a whole lot of people, doctors were there, and we were at this one hospital, and I kept saying, I have this itch. And everyone was kind of blowing me off. And then one nurse said, you know, that looks like chicken pox. And then they had to actually identify that I had chicken pox. This first hospital freaked out. A resident told my husband he didn't know if I or our child would survive.
Oh my goodness.
And then we were moved to Buffalo Children's Hospital. And then they took us in. Oh yeah, we'll have to isolate you. You'll be fine. That is not why Jessica has a chromosome deletion, a rare chromosome deletion that was not identified until she was 21. It was not from the chickenpox. It was just a weird coincidence that we.
So what does that mean? So for the lay people amongst us, this chromosome, what does that actually mean?
So we're all made up of chromosomes, and Jessica has a tip of her chromosome missing, which means there's a lot of genes in the tip of her chromosome. And so what that says is she's missing important pieces that are the blueprint of how our body works and how our brain works. So she is, even though it's a submicroscopic deletion, it's really small. And it wasn't able to be diagnosed until she was 21 because they didn't have the tools. So they couldn't see it at first. So they finally got the tools. The genes that she's missing are pretty key. So Jessica is, all right, I'm going to start with the brightest star in the room, the person who will smile at you. And when I walk in her house, she's like jumping up and down and screaming, like she lets you know what she's thinking, but she does not speak. She does not speak. She cannot walk. She needs assistance with all daily living skills. And what that means is someone has to feed her. Someone has to do everything you would do for a toddler. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how old is she now? So she lives in her own house, did you say?
She lives it's in a group home, and it's 2 miles from our house. She's 41. I'm like, look, I have a 41-year-old.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people. It's a rare deletion. So there's not a lot of people with the same diagnosis as Jessica. And there's not a lot of people Jessica's age. And I have taken that to mean not many families were still searching at 21 for what is a diagnosis. So there probably are other people Jessica's age. They just don't have the diagnosis.
Right.
And so, and that's what I hope is the reason.
And that's what you hope is the
grade.
reason. So, I mean, you've taken, as you say, we don't, like everything in life, we don't plan everything. Stuff happens, but we do have a choice what we make it mean to us. And so you have taken this wonderful child that you've been given, which doesn't fit perhaps the normal mold, whatever normal's supposed to mean, but who brightens up obviously your life and has given purpose and passion and an entire career and mission to you and to your family, and who seems to be such a beautiful soul that she has an impact on everyone. Just even imagining her is making me smile and brighten up. So what is the mission of your book? What would you say the purpose is of what you do? I mean, you're an advocate of how to support parents and take care of their child with special needs, especially as they age, right?
Correct. And I have found that there are a lot of families, including myself. So when Jessica was young, if someone would have said group home to me or not living in our house, I would have walked away. I
Yeah.
know my mom used to bring it up, and it used to really
Oh
annoy
gosh,
me
yeah.
and anger me. And I didn't really want to listen to it. And I've met a lot of families. I'm doing a keynote presentation on this soon. I've met a lot of families who have younger children, and they say, "No, my kid is always living at home."
Yeah.
But here's the story. As you age and as your children age, we're not going to live forever, and that's a hard pill to take, but we are not going to
Yes,
live forever.
yes,
And my husband and I decided we wanted Jessica to live independently as she
yes,
can, like her siblings do, and have those opportunities while we were still young enough to plan for her. So we were young enough that if it didn't work out in the first house she was, okay, she can come home and we'll find another house, or
yes.
we'll find different supports, but we could tweak it. What happens with a lot of families who compassionately keep their children home is one day the parents are no longer able to take care of their child, and so their child has an emergency placement,
I
which
get
is
you.
the antithesis of everything that you wanted for your child, because they lived in your environment and now you are not there to help them transition into another environment, and they're not living in a place that you chose or with supports that you selected, so it becomes an emergency. other
That is so
families
wise.
other families assume that siblings are going to care for their child. There's one story I have with this mom who was taking care of her adult who had significant needs. And the mom thought her sister was going to care for her when mom was no longer on the planet. And the day mom passed away, the sister went to live with her sibling, and the sibling called up Human Service Agency the next day and said, "We have to place my sister."
I'm glad you're talking about these things because I mean it makes total sense to me as well that with the best of intentions you think no I have had this child, I will take care until the end, but in a way that's not the right sort of love, right? The right sort of love is also, just like also your child, letting him fall so that he can learn how to stand, and for you to see, how that child is experiencing living alone, and indeed being able to then make the adjustments so that that whatever happens in life, and we don't always know, if it's going to happen when we're 80 or something, but that you're leaving the child in the best environment and already conscious of that environment, and and in charge of it in as much as that is possible, that is their life and it doesn't depend on you or on your husband. And that sibling thing I can relate to too, because at the same time I guess with all the love that sibling feels, well, it's not really my problem. My parents had a child, and yes, she is my sister, and I do love her, but I don't know how to look after her, and I have a right to my own life, and all those sorts of things. So, I mean, I think it's very good that you're talking about this because they are difficult topics, right? And we're talking about the best of intentions. We are talking about love all round, but
We
what
are
is
talking
best?
about a compassionate love. So
Yeah.
not that it's not the right kind of love, but that it can be misguided.
Yes.
And I fully understand that because I too felt that way.
Yeah.
But in order to really give your child the opportunity they need, it's better to do it when you can help them transition. And for siblings, yeah, it's tough. Like my other children, they grew up with Jessica. They went through this. They have their own family. I wouldn't want them to have to do what we did. It's not fair. What I do ask of them is that where Jessica is, and when my husband and I are no longer here, that she is visited
Yes.
frequently, that they are the people that are called when anything happens. If Jessica
Yeah.
goes to the hospital, they're her sibling.
Yeah.
So, and that one would hope they would do that for each other anyway.
Yes.
So they have the responsibility of a sibling, but not a
But
caretaker.
not as exactly what
Yeah.
that is perfectly put. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I was thinking. Right. So what do what are you, we're talking about planning, right? We're talking about looking ahead while we can. You know, we're not talking this program, but certainly my version of 5 years after 50 is not about we're about to croak. You know, it's the contrary. It's being vibrant and all that. But I mean,
it's about living your life.
It's about living your life. It's about living your life, but also leaving our child that we love in the best possible circumstances for them as well, but also for us, right? To know that we've got, and as much as it's possible, of course, in life we can't, you know, predict everything, but there's a lot we can do. And I hear you say plan, right? Don't wait.
Yeah. So first of all, the first thing, and this is a hard one, is to start before you're ready. Because the day your child needs to go into another setting, it could be a group home, an independent apartment with supports, whatever you choose together as the right setting for your child, the day they need to go, it's too late. Because then it takes, I'm in the States, it could take years, it could take a long time for the placement that you want. There's always a bed available, but is that the place that matches and aligns with your child? So to try to plan before you're ready.
Right.
Just on a different note, I'm having this conversation with my dad, who's 92, completely independent, and he doesn't live in our state. And I'm like, hey, why don't you come up here? He goes, well, I'm not ready yet. But I'm like, Dad, when you're ready, it's not going to be there. So it just hit me that this is the same conversation.
Yes. Because we don't even want to think about it, but it's actually thinking about it without having to do it then, which makes it easier, because then the idea grows as well. We start to you know, we go through all these different phases.
Plan.
Yeah.
Another thing is to look at all the different community supports and resources in your community. And I know I'm talking to people who are all over the world.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even begin to start saying what's available in your community, but to look into your community and what housing options are there. I'm talking specifically about housing, but there's living, there's working, and there's playing. So what recreational things are available? What work options or volunteer options? But start looking around. Another thing is to talk to families who have successfully transitioned with their child. I know I was in the field, so I knew more about this. For my husband, it was a bigger leap. And so we went and visited other houses. And for us, we saw, okay, this is not an institution. If you walk into my daughter's house, I mean, her walls are purple. She has a big TV in her room. She loves music. So she uses her iPhone as like how people used to use a beatbox. She puts it to her ear and listens to music. But it's a home. It's a beautiful, beautiful home. And I think especially people our age and people over 50, when they think of where individuals with disabilities lived, it was an institution. It's not like that now. So,
and I could understand then the reluctance, you know, to say I'm going to put my child there for her or his best benefit, because you feel like you're actually being selfish. But thankfully times have changed, or at least in many countries. I've lived quite a bit in Black Africa, where I would say they're maybe not there yet. And there it is automatically family, because that is the environment that you're in. It's very much a family-based social structure anyway, for elderly people, for all the rest. But otherwise, I'm sure that there are a lot more now than there were, and that they are indeed wonderful places, that they're not institutions where people are, you know, attached to the bed or whatsoever, so they don't disturb anyone. But they're beautiful places with their own character and colors, and it is a home, as you say, somewhere the child feels happy and safe and comfortable.
Yes. I mean, she has a piano in her home. One of her housemates does watercolors, and there's beautiful art on the wall. And so, and her housemates, they're like her family, and their parents are our extended family.
Yeah.
But I know our situation is not what everyone would have. But that's why you have to look around, and you have to see what is available and talk to other families and talk to professionals and do your due diligence and see what's out there
So how
for your.
old was Jessie when she moved?
So Jessica was 25 when she moved, and she was 20 when we started the planning.
So,
So
but that's it sounds good because that's the age that normally, right? That's would happen as
correct.
you're moving on. So it's a natural progression exactly at that age. So for you, how old were you then? Or how long ago was that?
Well, Jessica's been living in a group home for about 15 years. So I
Okay.
was, all right, I am Vicky Rubin and I'm 65 years old.
Yes, exactly. And you look great and you sound full of energy. So there's absolutely nothing being ashamed of being
No,
65
I'm not.
about.
I'm
No,
not. Age
exactly.
doesn't bother me.
No,
Anyway,
exactly. Okay.
I was 50. I was 50 when she moved into the house. I mean, for my husband and I, that was a very big. I mean, we all become who have children become empty nesters. But to be an empty nester after having Jessica, I mean, I had a baby monitor in my bedroom for 25 years.
Right.
I woke up at 6 a.m. and did everything you would do for a toddler for 25 years. So all of a sudden, you identify as that's who you are. And even
Exactly.
my career was that. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, when you're no longer doing that day to day, that is a very big adjustment. And you need to
Yeah.
try to
It would have been a
adjust to
lot
that.
harder for you than for her, I imagine, the way it
Right,
sounds
right.
like. It would be harder for you. And that's a very good point because, I mean, I have talked about empty nesting on here as well and redefining yourself, especially for, I mean, not all women have children, but especially for the women with children and who have dedicated a lot of their adult life to being a mother, as in, maybe less career, etc. Because then there is the question of, well, if I'm not the mother of, who am I? And sometimes the partner of doesn't actually hold up once the children have gone. So what you're saying is, yes, it's almost like having a baby, when you're in that hands-on, every second, you have to think in advance. Do I have time to go to the toilet? Do I have time to shower? Is the child in a safe spot while I do this? I mean, it is then a 24/7. And also, actually, last week I had a very interesting episode with a lady also about the hormones and, about the fact that it's estrogen, which enables us to be those super women, right? Where we've got eyes in the back of our head, we've got 25 balls up in the air, we can do the children, child 1, 2, 3, plus the partner, plus your job, plus the gym, etc. And that all of that goes down. So you're already in a lot more of a less busy bee sort of mindset. And it can be a lot to go through at the same time. So I guess you have to be pretty kind with yourself as well in that period.
I like that you're saying that, and that's a really important point. You have to be kind to yourself. You're being compassionate to your child by making this decision, even though internally it may not feel that way, but you are, because you're making that transition when I'm reiterating what I just said, but you're making that transition when you can support your child, but you also have to be kind to yourself. So my husband and I we bought an RV. So we started traveling around in an RV. We weren't able to go away, together. I would go away with my kids, or he
You
would go
take it
away.
in turns, right?
Yeah. So,
but it must be, it's a real mindset thing to not go immediately for the guilt, for the, we shouldn't be off, having fun and etc. But that is, I mean, it's not even tough love. I was thinking, that's, tough love. We need, if we never let any of our children do anything because we're scared. I mean, yesterday my daughter didn't get home. She doesn't live here until Amsterdam until it was 2:30 in the morning, and she was supposed to send the message. You worry, but you can't, you can't say, well, then you're not allowed out. Then I'm going to attach you to the chair in your bedroom because I want to keep you safe. I mean, you want to say that, but you know that it's not in the advantage of the child. The child needs to fly. The child needs to make its own, mistakes. I mean, in a protected way, especially with a child with special needs. You need to cover the things that the child, it's got nothing to do with not wanting to, but was unable to do. But for the rest, to give them their life as well, because that's what you give her. You're giving her her own life, which we all deserve to have.
So, I'm talking mostly about Jess, who has pretty significant disabilities, but I have spoken with other families, And one person's daughter, she has a lot more abilities to Jessica. She wanted her three brothers moved out of the house. She's like, when is it my turn?
Yeah.
So she did move out. It wasn't successful at first. She actually has lived in 3 different homes, but now it's successful. But her parents helped her with that. She
Yes.
came home, she went back, and they found the right place, and they were
Right.
able to do that not in an emergency.
Exactly. And to allow time for, if that solution isn't the right one, what else can we do? What else can we try? So basically, if we're talking about 3 tips here, so we're talking about planning, right?
Planning, I had my 3 tips. Yeah, planning, and then finding support in your community, there's sometimes paid support, unpaid support, and talking with other families and celebrating your success. I mean, the baby steps. Every little baby step, it should be celebrated. This is not going to happen overnight, but the planning is the biggest thing, and the planning before you're ready. And my book is really talks about a lot about that, but my book is really not specifically about moving into a group home or any of that, but that's a piece of it.
So what I mean, your book is about embracing your child, right? Yeah.
The book is about specifically, I guess, my transformation, but a family's transformation when you have a child with a disability, and it's not depressing. It's written in humor, so you will be laughing. The biggest comments I get was, couldn't put it down. Read it, stayed up all night and read it. I had tears from laughing and tears from crying, because it's a heartwarming book. It's a positive book, but it gives the parent perspective, the unique sibling perspective. So I interviewed the siblings, almost like an exit interview when you leave a big corporation and they say, so how do we do? So I did that with my kids. So how did we do?
And was it a surprise? Yes, it is scary to do that. I mean, most children have a wish list and pages of it, of usually everything that we did do wrong. But well, yeah,
how's this working for you?
yeah.
And then I interviewed Jessica's grandparents, and my mom, who always told me I should write a book, she developed Alzheimer's as I was writing the book, but she was able to hear the whole book, and I was able to interview her.
I think it's amazing you've done this. I mean, it's a gift. It's a gift to Jessie. It's a gift to your entire family, you know, showcasing how you can do things in a certain way. And it must be a huge message of hope for very many families, very many, well, in whichever stage they are, whether they've just, as you say, heard, or whether, you know, they're wondering how to have a life as well, so that everybody, and indeed, as you say, having siblings as well, because of course your responsibilities go to them as well, right? You don't want them to feel either that they don't count, that the only person who does count is the most needy one. It must be a balancing act. And I mean, what did it do to you writing this book?
So before I had it published, I kept saying to myself, if it never gets published, then this is a legacy to our family. This is, you know, writing about our family and how we all came together. It's that alone was just such an accomplishment. For me, my mom always said you should write a book. I didn't know. I always loved to write. I didn't know that I was going to write a book. And then I've won 3 awards is just, it's a great thing. And I know this is fabulous after 50, but all this happened after 60. So we're not done.
No, you're not done. And there's going to be a lot more ahead, and there might be a book even which comes out, you know?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. No, thank you for all the people who are going to get hope from this. Thank you for the words and the love which comes through everything that you say, and how you taken this and created a beautiful stream of hope and light for the families and for the children. So thank you for that. It was an absolute pleasure having you here. Good luck with whatever you decide to do next on the next stage, let alone traveling all over the world and doing all the things that you can do now, knowing, like the rest of us, that your child, who is a special child, but your child is having an enjoyable life of her own. And that's the way it should be. So thank you. All the very, very best. And to the rest of you out there, let's share Vicky's story. Let's share the ideas about the book. Let's recommend it to people around us for whom it could make a huge difference. And let's see how we can contribute to helping make that difference for people. Thank you very much, Vicky. All the very best. Happy weekend. And to the rest of you, speak to you this time again next week.
Thank you.